Tansi. I am going to speak about living better from a position of loss. I'm Christa Couture. I'm mixed Cree and Scandinavian. I'm a writer, a singer-songwriter, and a broadcaster. I'm also an amputee. If you can see me, it's fairly evident. I wear a prosthetic leg that's covered in flowers. I had bone cancer when I was a kid, and the cure for that cancer was to amputate my leg above the knee when I was 13. I am also a mom. I have 3 children, my daughter who is 2, and my sons who would be 13 and 10 if they were still alive. But my first son died as a newborn, and my second son died at 14 months old. When I hear living better, I think of things like, it gets better, and there's always hope. Those are 2 statements I've been told a lot, and 2 statements I take issue with, because while they're sometimes true, they're just objectively inaccurate. It doesn't always get better. It can get worse. And there isn't always hope. Frequently, yeah, there's hope, sure. Often it makes sense to be hopeful, but there are situations in this life that are truly hopeless. And I can tell you from experience that it only makes things worse to call them anything else. We live in this feel-good and get-over-it culture where grief, despair, heartache, pain, and sorrow just aren't very welcome. We want to dress them up. We won't invite them to the party unless they at least come as the +1 of bright side or silver lining. Otherwise, in the face of our get-over-it culture, it can feel like it's a crime to infringe upon someone else's good time if you happen to be having a hard time. As a person with a disability, better is tied very much to an ideal. It can mean more able / less disabled. And some people think it's better to not have a disability than it is to have one, and that line of thinking is harmful. It implies that a disabled life is less than, and that kind of thinking, that type of better, extends beyond disability. Our culture thinks a lot of things are better when it comes to our bodies. It's better to be thin, to be tall, cisgender, white, and have 4 limbs. Like you, I am constantly faced with images, stories, and narratives of a homogeneous body that doesn't look like mine. And my body, it only has 1 leg. It's not going to get better. It's not going to grow back. I'm not a starfish. So in an unambiguous move to accept my body is when I decorated my prosthesis with the flowers, and that made it different. This is what I offer as an alternative to better. Different. In the months after my first son died, in the months after my second son died, I often wondered, what if it doesn't get better? What if I never feel better? The heaviness, the weight of grief, the restrictions of living with grief, I thought, what if this is it? Okay? Except all around me were those messages that suffering is not okay, it's not allowed, it's tolerated for a little while, but then get better, get over it. Suffering is this buzzkill. It cramps the style of the motivational speeches and the gratitude practices and the Facebook and the Instagram feeds that keep telling us having such a good time, doing a great job, getting better all the time. And it's a lot of pressure on a broken heart and on a disabled body. So I set my sights, instead of better, on different. Years later, there have been positive changes in my life. I have things in my life, in my work, in my family that I love and cherish that are different from if I hadn't had cancer and lost my leg, that are different from if my sons hadn't died. And I can say they are wonderful, but I can't say they're better. So what I want from you, from us, is to stop saying better and start saying different. And of course, I mean, there's so many areas where better makes sense, living better and doing better. Climate crisis and ableism and transphobia and just the petty fight you had with your friend, and absolutely let's do better in all those places. But when it comes to experiences with grief, injury, illness, any great loss, we don't have to get better. This is kind of a version of the serenity prayer, you know, the God grant me the wisdom to accept the things I cannot change. Except for me, the words God and prayer and serenity kind of make me twitch. So I've also heard this referred to as grounded hope, and that I can get behind. A hope or an intention that is based not on something unrealistic, but on what is happening, what we actually have, what's possible, and on what's not possible. I don't know how you've handled suffering so far in this life, yours and that of others. But the next time you encounter a hopeless situation, when there is something that can't be replaced or rebuilt, consider that in order to feel better, you might have to accept it's not going to get better. But I promise you, definitely will be different. Ekose, thank you.